Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with more Mitsurugi Sprite. And yes, this time I am not only playing Sprite Elf, but the Baron de Fleur as well. I'm gonna start with this going first game, because it's gonna really well illustrate how to bridge from Mitsurugi into Yummy. Now here I opened the Mitsurugi mirror because I am still on pre-prep, although you technically don't need the mirror in order to be able to set up your two bodies to then go into the chameleon. So I'm going to use the mirror here, but just know that it's not necessary. I highly recommend Muha's Mitsurugi Yummy guide. I thought was quite good. But I'm also not playing Gravity Controller, which I know he did use in that guide. So here we're going to go for the Murakumo from deck off the Ritual, sending the Habakiri from hand. Now I can use the mirror to summon the Murakumo by then tributing the Habakiri. So we're going to be able to summon back the Murakumo, and because I opened with Mirror too, I'm just going to add Great Purification and add that to my end board here. Now I'm going to take my two bodies and link them into Sky Striker Ace Camellia. This kind of setup we already discussed on the channel, but again, my end board is going to be looking different here as I am going to be going into Sprite Elf. Not going into Baron de Fleur with this setup because I think you can only go into Baron if you open a Yummy monster, but that is definitely something you can do as well. Yeah, I definitely wanted to try this variant, and I'm definitely not disappointed with how it performs. I will maintain that when it comes to pure Yummy specifically, I definitely think that Elf is not necessarily optimal, but it is optional. However, when it comes to the Mitsurugi and Fiendsmith builds, as I've been playing them lately here, I do really like having access to Elf, and again, Baron here. So, as mentioned before, I'm not on Gravity Controller. I thought I was for a minute, which is why I put the Shamisen Sarakat in the EMZ, but we actually don't need Gravity Controller here. We can just make the Herald of the Arclight, and I still have Yummy Surprise in my hand, so I can use that to revive the Marshmallow, and then Marshmallow wheels back the Yummy Surprise. And remember, I haven't summoned even my first copy of Yummy Snatchy yet, so we can make that now, and then Snatchy F to place the Mignon, and then we can Mignon, revive the Marshmallow, and then go into Lollipo. Of course, I'm not afraid of hand traps like Nibiru at this point, because we do have the Herald of the Arclight online. We can go Lollipo Yummy way in order to summon back the Cupsy as well as the Marshmallow. We can even still revive the Shamisen Samsara Sarakat, and then link it with the Lollipo Yummy way in order to make the Sprite Elf. We can go Elf F in order to revive the Lollipo, and then I can just link my two onboard bodies into the IP Masquerena, which will give me the option to go into SP on my opponent's turn. We get to set all three of our spell and trap cards that we searched up before going into our opponent's turn. They're going to get to lead with a Super Poly here. It's Ryuge, and they're going to fuse away Herald of the Arclight with Lollipo Yummy way to make a Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Of course, because we're on the Elf, we can use that in order to revive the Lollipo and still have access to our Yummy support without having to use the Surprise. I'm also going to throw out the Max C here. They're going to move to Battle Phase, but remember, we still have the Murakumo in the yard, so I can use Prayers in order to revive it. This will not only wipe away the Mud Dragon, protecting the IP Masquerena, but now we have another negate style effect, or at the very least a discard, going into our opponent's turn. So that's how to both set up and then also utilize this Mitsurugi Yummy end board. Even when you get hit with the Super Poly to take away your Omni Negate, which unfortunately the Elf couldn't protect us here, that still doesn't mean that we are totally SOL. In fact, we're completely fine, even in a scenario like that, where the Elf targeting protection on the Herald isn't good enough. Alright, there is our first duel. Let's take a look at the next one. Now here we have a going second duel against Kashtira, like straight up Kashtira with like a Rise Heart and everything. I legit could not tell you the last time I saw this deck on ladder. I was actually thinking the other day that I wonder if Fenrir could come back to 2, like with nothing else changed, and it would probably still be fine, honestly. Anyway, the only hand trap that we have here is Droll and Lockbird, but thankfully they led with Ryzeal, so the Droll is going to be enough in order to stop them here. They're going to go for Unicorn, and they have a Birth in hand already to be able to normal summon a Fenrir as well. So that's definitely annoying, right? Despite the fact that we had Duel, we're still gonna have to play through potentially a Banish as well as the extra deck rip. But I'm not actually super worried about either of these. Even just looking at my hand, I already am kind of formulating this idea that I can just go into a really early Murakumo and then I won't have to worry about Fenrir's effect at all. Unicorn could potentially be a little bit of a problem. I'm honestly mostly worried about them banishing my Lollipo Yummy Way. I think that would be, with this hand to me already having Cupsy Yummy, one of the toughest things to deal with. So top deck pre-prep is not the most ideal, but whatever. We still have the Cupsy Yummy in hand, so I'm going to go Habakiri for Saji here. Sure enough, they are going to use the Unicorn Rip. And I realize there's a decent chance they might go for Cupsy Yummy Way, which if we take a look, that is actually what they picked here. So it makes sense. They don't want me to be able to bridge from the Mitsurugi engine into Yummy. I think that in a vacuum, this was probably the best extra deck rip for my opponent. But of course, because I already have Cupsy Yummy in hand, I'm actually completely fine with that. And I would have been a little more afraid if they would have taken a Lollipo Yummy. But yeah, we're just going to go for Ritual to summon out the Murakumo here. Habakiri and Murakumo Fs get to activate. They're going to use the Kashtira Birth effect. And I am going to end up using the Murakumo here, because they only have 2 cards left. And if one of them ends up being like a Nibiru or something, that might be a bit of a problem. Of course, they wouldn't just discard it. But at the very least, if they had 2 hand traps, you know, we might be able to deal with it. They end up discarding a Fulos, which makes sense. And then as soon as we normal summon Cupsy Yummy, they just end up conceding. Because even without Cupsy Yummy Way, we can go normal summon Cupsy Yummy to add... I wouldn't add Surprise here. I'd probably just add another name. The one with the highest attack is Cookie Yummy, I believe. So we could add Cookie Yummy, link into Snatchy. Snatchy for Mignon. Then Mignon revive Cupsy Yummy, summon the Cookie Yummy. And that's already 1,500 times 3, because there's 3 Yummy monsters, is 45. Plus the Murakumo's 32. That's pretty much lethal right there, even without continuing to combo. They only have 1 card in their hand at that point, so it's decently likely it's not Nibiru. Plus, Kashtira tends not to play Nibiru anyway, for how having the body on your board conflicts with your game plan. So I was reasonably confident we just had lethal there. Alright, let's take a look at another going second duel. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty back and forth going second game against DDD. This is a deck that I have not played against a ton on Ranked Ladder. I did in the event quite a bit, as a lot of people did. But on Ranked Ladder, I think this is one of my first times running into it. And not just like, you know, going first against them and then conceding or something like that. I definitely threw out Fulos way too early here. I don't have an excuse for this. I was just watching YouTube on the side and thought they were active. For some reason, I thought this was an effect that summoned from deck, but no. It places the Dark Contract that usually summons from deck, although here, we're just going to end up adding cards because of my preemptive Fulos. So, I don't super need the draws or anything, but I will say that I wouldn't have minded like a Yummy Monster here. They're going to throw out a Maxi, which is a bit of a problem because I don't want to give them a ton of draws. If this was old DDD where they don't have room for a ton of hand traps, I would have just plowed through this Maxi. But here what I'm going to do instead, because I know that the DDD off engine has gained quite a bit of room recently, I'm going to use pre-prep to add Murakumo in Mirror, and I'm just going to use Mirror to summon out Murakumo right away. I'm going to give them 1 draw, battle, set prayers and purification, and then pass. I'm a little concerned about the face down card here, but it also comes with a discard cost to be able to destroy a card on my field, so I'm hoping that that's going to be enough of a deterrent here. Or not necessarily a deterrent, that's not the word I'm looking for, but I hope that's going to be enough of a setback for my opponent that I'm able to push through everything they have. So they're going to go summon Orthos, add and then summon Copernicus. I'll definitely use Murakumo, force them to go for the discard here. They're going to toss out the Droll and Lockbird, milling the Knight that summons from the graveyard there. Sinking for 8 for the Cursed King Siegfried. That's actually fine because the Murakumo board wipe comes from the monster effect, and so does Murakumo reviving itself. I don't actually need this prayers to resolve to be able to answer their board state here, which I'm definitely going to do now before they're able to link off or sink for 10 or anything like that. So yeah, Prayers is negated. Again, this is actually completely fine because Murakumo is going to summon it back, and I can chain block it with the mirror even if they did have like some kind of a negate effect here. Or like an Ash Blossom in hand or something like that. So we're going to add another Prayer, summon back the Murakumo. Murakumo board wipe. Now they're going to go for the Siegfried and the Scale Surveyor effect. The Scale Surveyor is actually pretty scary because it means they can use the Doom Queen Machinex effect here. And they're going to end up using the Trap card in order to pop Murakumo. I decided not to use Great Purification because there's kind of no point. If I don't die here, which I don't think I will, I can just use it on my follow-up turn. And sure enough, they're not able to kill me. They can use the Count Surveyor here to add Savant Kepler, but they've already used their normal summons, so they can't get out any more damage. And not only did I top deck the Marshmallow Yummy, but even without that, I still had the Prayers to revive Murakumo, wipe, swing, and I still had a Great Purification. So yeah, I was actually in a pretty solid spot there, all things considered. Okay, got one last duel to show you before we go into the deck breakdown. Alright, final game here is going to be against Mitsurugi Ryzeal, and this is going to be a going first game, but there's going to be a little bit of a complication here. As we take our opening turn, we're going to, of course, as always, go draw phase Prayers. Our opponent's going to throw out a Fuelos. And I'm not really sure that I want to play into it, because here's the thing, right? While Yummy in its pure variant has a lot of lines that play really well into Fuelos, in order to make any amount of headway here with the Mitsurugi stuff, I'm going to have to give them multiple draws. Moreover, I'm looking at the rest of my hand with these two Fuelos, and I'm actually just going to pass without playing anything here. Now, if I didn't have any Fuelos in my hand, I think I would have gone Habakiri for Saji, give them one draw, Saji F for Ritual, activate Ritual to summon Murakumo from deck, give them a second draw, add Prayers, and then pass. Because that, at the very least, while I'm giving them two draws, does set up the Murakumo. If these had been like any other hand trap. But because it's Fuelos specifically, that doesn't want me to control any cards, that's why I'm going to pass without playing anything here. I don't think giving them a couple of draws to set up a negate is fine, but again, because we have exactly Fuelos, I think that it's better to pass here. So they're going to go Bonfire for X, summon X by sending Eclipse Twins. I'm going to actually use my Imperm here, even though I have double Fuwa in hand, because on the off chance my opponent doesn't have any extenders at all, it wouldn't be necessarily bad, because I would still be able to go Habakiri on my turn and then combo out. But here they are going to have normal summon Ice Ryzeal. Unfortunately, Imperm on X was not enough to just end their turn. So we're going to throw out the double Fuelos here. And at this point, we're just going to have to hope that we draw into stuff in the right order. What of course I mostly mean is that I need to draw Nibiru before our opponent is able to establish the cross. Now here they're going to be King of the Feral Imps kind of right off the bat, which is perfectly fine with me because it gives me a lot more opportunities to try to set up here. I did miss a Maxi draw here with the Star Ryzeal, which could very easily end up mattering in the long run, but yeah, they are going to get the cross online here. Now that they have the Duo drive up. However, we find another Imperm, and I'm going to throw that out here because not only can I stop the Duo drive from getting an extra material, but now it also stops them from searching more Ryzeal extenders, like the Node. So now they're going to have to go into their Mitsurugi stuff, particularly the Habakiri, giving me 3 draws here. Ash Blossom on the Saji, I was actually kind of hoping they would use Cross, but they're definitely going to be holding it for that Nibiru specifically. They've got a Prayers as well. Going to send off the Habakiri from hand, summon back the Saji. And now they're just going to use the Habakiri in order to add the Ritual here. Activate Ritual because they do have the Kusanagi in hand. And they also had the Murakumo in hand. Of course, they could have just summoned it from deck here. But the fact that they had it from hand actually does deny me 2 more draws, which could very easily end up mattering here. Now at this point, the Cross is still live, but I still haven't seen Nibiru. We're going to use Kusanagi to add back the Ritual. activate Ritual, Tributing Murakumo to summon, I believe this is going to be a Habakiri from deck. Yes. And still no Nib, but we do find the Ghost Bell here. I'm going to throw out Ghost Bell. And again, at this point, I'm actually really hoping they use the Cross, but they don't. They let the Bell resolve. Huge props to my opponent, because they already had Lethal on board. There was just no reason for them to, you know, activate the Cross there, thinking that I'm holding the Nibiru. Although, to be fair, they had Lethal on board quite a while ago. They could have just gone for it, but they still played this quite well, I think. At the end of the day, there was just not much we were able to do given the board state and what they opened. But alright, there is the last game. Let's go ahead and break down the deck before we finish off the video here. Alright, so here is my updated deck list for Mitsurugi Yummy. Yes, here's Elf and Baron. Didn't really have any clean, you know, Yummy lines to summon the Baron in this play session, but I am going to be using this style, I think, moving forward. Like I said, when it comes to variants like Mitsurugi and Fiendsmith, I do think there is a lot of merit to playing Elf. It is mostly just the pure variant where, again, I don't even think Elf is bad in pure Yummy. I just don't necessarily think it's optimal. But the thing about Mitsurugi Yummy, as always, is that we kind of have to play fewer hand traps than some other decks. Only 14. It's such a first world problem, but you know, when you're used to playing 16 to 18, it can you'd start to notice it a little bit more. This version is 40 cards. I trimmed out a lot of the stuff from both the main and extra that wasn't technically necessary. Stuff like Aramasa and Kusanagi, as well as even the extra gravity controller we're not even on. Because you don't technically need all of that stuff to be able to combo with this deck, but it does let you combo in other situations, and it can make comboing a lot more easy. So, Mitsurugi Yummy is there's just so many different ways to play out this line and to build, you know, your deck to play out the line in different ways that there's a lot to explore with this variant of Yummy in particular. Something like Pure, I'm a lot more confident in locking in my opinion on than something like Mitsurugi. So, like I said, I'm definitely going to try this build and others like it moving forward just to see how I like it and see what all is viable and good. As always, got to give a huge shout out to the comments for your suggestions. Always open to those and trying new stuff out. So, you know, it might take some time just because, like, you know, of the nature of the way videos are recorded and then uploaded. You might leave a comment, you know, today and I might not get back to it until next week, but rest assured that I am always, you know, reading the comments and taking your suggestions and trying them out. So, yeah, that I think is pretty much going to do it. There's not a ton really to say about this deck that I haven't already in the games or in other videos up to this point. So yeah, thank you as always for watching. Super duper appreciate it. Very grateful for your support. Let's go ahead and move on to the outro so we can thank YouTube members and Patreon subscribers for their extra generous support. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.